Hey everyone, Frank here, doing a video today on my personal CPA study plan, my study habits that I used when studying for and taking the CPA exams. This was a video topic that was requested by a number of people on my previous videos, so I thought, you know what, why not give back to the community and impart what I learned through my own year-long trial by fire. Now, before I launch into my entire presentation here, which yes, I did do it in PowerPoint. So, if you don't like PowerPoint, tough. If you're going to be an accountant, you're going to see PowerPoint a lot. May as well get used to it. Um, of course, that's not the point I'm trying to make here. The point I'd like to make going into this study plan is that if you're wondering if you can take and pass the CPA exam, if you can be part of public accounting, yes, you can. I don't care how old you are, yes, you can. The industry itself is certainly geared toward the younger college student who's going to spend their summers studying for the exam, then go to work for a CPA firm and crank out 2 years of billable hours while completing the exam. That's how the industry is set up, but it doesn't mean you have to go that route. I worked accounts receivable for a manufacturing company, accounts payable for a manufacturing company. I've worked for a nonprofit. I worked for a government agency. I currently work for a nonprofit. Um, how you get there isn't as important as what you do along the way and the opportunities that you expose yourself to. So if you want to be a CPA, you can do it. Just, remember that it's all about accounting and about accounting knowledge. So whether you're gaining that knowledge through a class, a particular job that you're taking, whatever, as long as it's beneficial to you and fulfills you, do it, and realize that your path is not the same as everyone else's, and that's okay. So having said that, let's move right along. About me, I'm a licensed CPA in the state of Michigan as of August 2018. I passed all 4 of the CPA exams on my first try. Starting with FAR, I took that in November of 2017. Got the results in December of 2017, as you can see. I did pretty darn well on FAR and BEC, and I did good on audit and regulation. Audit's actually my weakest area, mostly because I've not had much experience as an auditor. It's pretty much all theoretical except for dealing with auditor requests at the various businesses I've worked for. But the CPA exams, they're going to test your experience, they're going to test your book knowledge, they're going to test what you've learned on your CPA review. So if you haven't worked a ton of accounting related jobs, that's okay. If you haven't yet gone through a CPA review, that's okay. I'm just saying, I worked full time while taking the CPA exam. It took me about a year to do it. I finished them all. I'm licensed. I did it. And the moral of the story here is I hope anyone else can too, as long as they're serious about it. So let's move on to the first topic, and oddly enough, it's the most important topic. You might think that your actual studying is the most important topic, or the CPA review that you decide to study, but really, the most important thing is to prepare yourself for it. Key among that, prepare your mindset. The CPA is a part of your life right now, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's a part of your life as much as breathing, eating, drinking, sleeping, washing your hair, brushing your teeth. It's just something you do as a human being now. Think of it as a hobby. Think of it as whatever you want to think of it as. Just make it a part of your life in a comfortable way. By that same token, you need to prepare your family and friends for what you're about to get into. Not only do they need to realize that that's part of your life and part of your mindset, but they need to realize that you're making a commitment here to invest a ton of time into studying material that's going to be challenging and stressful, and it's going to make you moody. It's going to make you have to miss family gatherings. It's going to make you miss get-togethers like coffee dates, movie nights, game nights. It's gonna make you miss a lot of normal everyday things. And If you prepare your family and friends for that ahead of time and give them an idea of the gravity of the thing, then hopefully you'll get less grief when it comes time to say, oh, I can't spend the day with you. I absolutely need to study for the CPA. This topic is kicking my butt. And hopefully they won't, throw out any guilt or any shade for that. Um, because yes, you do need to invest a certain minimum amount of time. The AICPA recommends, roughly 200 hours for the exams. Maybe it's 300 hours now. Anyways, based on their breakdown, if you assign an hourly value to that, basically every hour you study is a quarter of a point on a CPA exam, maybe a half a point on a CPA exam. So if you've budgeted 6 hours on a particular day to study and you end up skipping all of those hours, well, honestly, you've probably cost yourself 2 or 3 points on the exam. And you just got to kind of keep that in mind, but again, in a more adaptable sort of way. So if you do end up costing yourself that time, make it up somewhere, make up those hours. And if it helps to prepare your family and friends, let them know how beneficial having this credential is going to be for you and for them. CPAs can get jobs more easily. Um, since having my CPA, I've had, if you count my personal clients that I had for a short while, honestly, I've had like 2 or 3 jobs before I finally found the one that fit me and was what I wanted to do. CPAs can find jobs. They can find well-paying jobs. Um, and in today's economy and today's climate, that's a great thing. Not only that, having the CPA, this may sound crazy, especially if you're planning to go to work for a CPA firm that focuses on billable hours, but CPAs tend to have more flexibility in their schedule because most firms don't care how you get those billable hours as long as you get them. If you're working for a business out there, because you're an expert in your field, because you're well educated and well versed, they're going to give you a lot of flexibility. And that in the long run means you're going to get to spend more quality time with your family. You're going to get to spend more quality time with your friends. You're not going to have to, kill your favorite parts of the day standing behind a cash register or processing things as a clerk. Whatever you do, if you're a CPA, it's going to improve your life and the life of those around you. Make that clear to them and also realize that yourself. This is going to be a grueling challenge ahead of you, but the light at the end of the tunnel is beautiful indeed. Along the lines of preparation as well, you're going to need a reference library. You're going to need a reference library of books, whether physical or digital. In an intermediate accounting textbook would be helpful. Cost accounting would certainly be helpful if you have it. Auditing, not a bad idea. Governmental accounting, although I will say the review courses nowadays are pretty good at teaching governmental accounting, so maybe that's not as hardcore, but any reference books that you have access to, be it physical books you have from when you took classes, digital resources, anything like that is going to help you out. Along the same lines, having websites that you can refer back to, whether it's accounting tools, whether accountingtools.net, Another 71 in their forums, YouTube channels such as Professor Farhat's videos, Ed Spira's videos, CPA Strength. Great channels. I definitely suggest you check them out because there's going to be times when you're doing your CPA review and a topic as it's presented on your CPA review is just going to come out of left field and challenge you, and there's going to be another resource out there that's going to help you learn it in a more engaging, more efficient way, and then you can bring it back into your studies and just continue right along. Now, also as part of your reference library, as I've said, studying for the CPA is a very mentally taxing endeavor. It's going to cause stress. I wasn't aware of that when I first started out. Well, somewhat I was aware of it, but I didn't really take it to heart as much as I should have. So here is my been there, done that tip for you, is find resources that will also uplift you and motivate you and help your mental well-being. And from an accounting standpoint, find YouTube channels or forums of people who are in the same boat as you. For example, Heaven's Odd Venture, Sarah Marie, and Lindsay Davis right now are posting content on YouTube about their CPA exam journeys and their CPA firm journeys, and they're putting out great content. And it's very motivating content because, they're having their highs and lows and their struggles, and they're slowly getting through them, and they're learning new things about themselves and about the accounting world, but they're serious and committed to it. And, they're great role models. You need to find resources like that. Find people that you can relate to and use to kind of motivate you, create a tornado of motivation, so to speak. And also find resources that aren't accounting related. Find friends who are really good at comforting you. Find family who's really good at comforting you. If there's a particular book or video game or something that calms you down or that, helps bring you back to an even keel, if taking a nap is your thing, whatever it is, as crazy as this sounds, make it part of your reference library. Make it part of your toolbox, the things that you go back to when you know, need to recharge. Now we've ended up at the point of contention that I was afraid to add to this presentation. So I'm going to go through it as quick as I can because I don't want any bodies to pile up here. The next thing you need to do is you need to pick a review course. And there are a lot of opinions out there as to which one's best. Honestly, my opinion is there isn't really a best one. There's the one that's right for you, but honestly, they're all presenting the same or very similar material. And if you're a studious person and you're adaptable, you're going to be able to make any of them work for you. Becker is known to give you the kitchen sink when it comes to information and study materials. Gleim has, I actually specifically used Gleim. I still have my textbooks right here. Gleim has one of the biggest test banks I've ever seen, and it's a trial by fire. Gleim punishes you with some of the hardest questions I've ever seen. And if that's your thing, maybe Gleim's right for you. But I'm not saying it's wrong for anybody, but it might be wrong for you if that makes sense. Roger, he's very engaging and his material is highly regarded. Ninja's highly regarded because there are various ways to consume the material and it's got a low entry cost. And the support that you get on the Another 71 forums tied to it is great. Wiley, Wiley has good materials as well and is known to have a pretty decent test bank. I actually used Wiley's test bank as my one of my supplements, and I thought it was great as a supplement. And I know there are people who use it as their primary study material. That's great. I just happened to have to take Gleim as part of a series of master's classes I was taking, so it was already there for me, so it became my primary focus. But there are other programs out there. Just pick the one that's right for you. Research it. Research the heck out of it. And by that I mean don't just look at one site that's comparing them. Look at multiple sites. Look at YouTube reviews. And be very cautious and skeptical about the ones who at the end seem to be focusing on one over all of the rest. Now, if they come up and they say that two of them are really good or they're providing a more balanced viewpoint, that's cool. But there are a lot of sites out there and sources that are trying to steer you toward a particular vendor because they have some sort of kickback relationship, a promotional relationship. And while the information may not necessarily be false, they're not exactly going out of their way to give you the solid points of every other review course that's out there. So if you watch a bunch of those or read a bunch of those sites as well as well-balanced sites, you'll start to get an idea of the one that's right for you. I was happy signing up for a course that involved Gleim because I knew Becker wasn't going to be right for me. I was really diligent in my accounting classes. I tried my best to get 4 points in all of them. I put a lot of study hours into those classes, so I didn't necessarily need the wealth of information that Becker was offering. Gleim is more notes-based, more jog your memory, and then hit you with questions that you later need to follow up kind of structure, and that worked for me. Bottom line though, research a review course, pick a review course. I'm not saying one's better than any other. Now to the nitty-gritty of your study plan. You need to set a loose timeline first and foremost. Are you going to take a year to finish up the CPA exams? Are you going to try and do them in 9 months? Whatever timeline you want to pick, make it loose. Know that you're probably not going to stick to it 100%. I know a YouTuber out there who, if she sees this video, will know that I'm referring to her, and I mean this in a pleasant way, who initially budgeted out something like 4 or 5 months to take and pass all of the CPA exams. And then that first CPA exam came along and hit her right in the face. And that's nothing negative about her or her study plan or her life plan. The fact is, studying for the CPA exam while having a real life, family and kids and whatnot, it it's it requires a time investment, and if you aren't prepared for it and you try to rush into it, you may be doing yourself a disservice. In that regard, tailor your schedule to your life. I work full time, I have a wife, I have a couple cats, my mom needs my help quite often. I had to factor that into my CPA study schedule. I could not study 8 hours a day every day or 6 hours a day every day. It just wasn't possible. Um, Even with my own study plan, I was cutting back on sleep more than I should have. So that point there is, tailor it to your schedule. If you can study a couple hours each day, you're probably not going to want to try and take an exam every 6 weeks or every 8 weeks. You're going to want to stretch it out a little bit. Take the harder exams, give 3 months to each of the harder ones, and give a couple months to the ones that you feel are easier. For example, many of the exams I would budget 2 months for those, like BEC. I budgeted 2 months for that. I'd study Monday through Friday for a couple hours, and then each day, and then on the weekend I'd study 8 hours total, whether that was 2 hours on a Saturday, 6 hours on a Sunday, all 8 hours on a Sunday. Who knows? Split it up 4 and 4. It's all about the hours you put in, not necessarily how you put them in. And again, that goes to tailoring the schedule to the way your life is set up. Now, for my particular plan for each exam, let's take FAR for example. Actually, going back to what I said previously about setting your schedule, FAR I budgeted 3 months for because I knew it was going to be one of the bigger exams, and even though financial accounting is one of my strengths, FAR is also the exam that has the most material on it. So I budgeted 3 months for that. On the first day, I spent 4 hours reviewing the materials that I had. So I looked through chapter 1 of the Gleim textbook. I did their online initial practice assessment. I did some multiple choice questions in there, and I did enough to give me an idea of what I was in for, what some of my early strengths and weaknesses were, to kind of get myself into the process. And that also involved, on those questions I got wrong, going back and researching what I needed to do to get them right. Maybe I'm referring back to my intermediate accounting textbook, maybe I'm looking up one of Professor Farhat's videos, maybe it's just in the notes in Gleim and I just need to look at it. Things like that. First day, at least 4 hours. Treat it like your first day of class, your first day at a seminar, whatever. Make it an event. Order yourself some pizza, make some cool snacks that you like, treat yourself in some way. Do what you can to make that first day, though, a good start. Get the candle lit, get the fuse going, make it a good launch pad. And then after that, I'd spend at least an hour a day doing multiple choice questions. And what I mean by a minimum of 1 hour a day is there were many days I do a couple hours worth, or maybe a little more. But I would rarely just sit down and do a 2 hour block of MCQs or even a 1 hour block of multiple choice questions. I do a quiz in the morning. I might do a quiz at lunchtime. After work, I might do an hour and a half. Who knows? The point here is to just do the work at times where your brain is going to assimilate some of that experience. Like I said, it's a marathon. So do questions that challenge you, learn from them, but don't beat yourself up doing it. On alternating days, I do 2 hours of simulations. Gleim simulations are pretty in-depth. I think the shortest ones take about 90 minutes. So I'd budget myself 2 hours for simulations on alternating days. Sometimes it ended up dragging into 3 hours or so. I tended to do those after work just because you never knew when you'd be done with them. Um, but you do have to make specific time for simulations. They're 50% of your grade on most of the exams, and they're very in depth. So don't shirk on them. Make them a part of your process. And then I would just keep doing this. I would, do my multiple choice questions every day. I do my couple hours of sims on alternating days, which gives you about 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours of sims each week, which over the course of an exam study period is plenty. And then after 30 days, I'd think about setting a date for the exam. I wouldn't set the date before I started studying. I'd give myself 30 days to really digest the material and see, okay, what is it looking like? What are my strengths and weaknesses? Have I done the material in such a way that 80% of it is in my strengths or my competencies, but my weaknesses is only roughly 20% of it? If that's the case, I feel comfortable scheduling the exam. Let's order that notice to schedule. Let's schedule with Prometric. Let's get a date on the calendar. Conversely, if I'm still feeling lost in the wind, things are roughing me up, well, then maybe I need to wait to set the date, give it a couple more weeks, and see how things are going. I might wait a couple weeks, do my same routine, throw in a practice exam, see how that's going. But once the date is set, practice exams become very important. You want to become used to the process of taking the CPA exam. For the CPA exam, they're going to make you, sit there for 4 hours with a small break in the middle doing accounting questions with a laser focus, and you're going to not be able to pace around, not be able to get a snack except for on a break. You can use the bathroom if you want, but if it's not during your middle break there, you're going to be eating up time. So you want to be used to this process. Do a legit practice exam. Take the 4 hours, sequester yourself, don't have any materials with you, just, Microsoft Excel if it's on your computer, because that's, you can use that on the exam now, and just churn through a practice exam. And then do that every couple weeks. Now, certainly if you want to do it more, that's fine. But I think baseline, do a practice exam every couple weeks after the first month. And you keep doing that process until you get to exam week, and things get crazy during exam week, and they kind of have to. I say keep it freewheeling during your study period. Do fit your multiple choice questions in when you can, make it a comfortable part of your life. But your exam week, it's going to have to be a little intense. So just accept that and do your best at it. Take a practice exam about 4 days before the exam itself, just to give you another run through of the process and to get another idea of what your current strength areas and weak areas are. That way, right after you take that exam, and then the following day, you can be reviewing those weak areas. 3 days before the exam isn't necessarily the time to be doing the things that you have the strong competencies in. That's when you need to be hammering out those weak areas. Pick one weak area or two weak areas and just work on those and get them shuffled into the competency pile. Do whatever you can do to minimize the harm that might happen if all of a sudden the exam you get, the first or second question is on an area you're not so good at. 2 days before the exam, I know this may seem odd since I said that those days before the exam are going to be intense, but 2 days for the exam, do little to no studying. If you want to do a few multiple choice questions to kind of keep your memory jogged or whatever, fine. But day 2 is the day to let your brain assimilate that information. There are studies that show that not only when we're sleeping, but when we're awake, when we're engaged in something else, our brain is still organizing, compartmentalizing, and shuffling away the information that we've given it in recent memory. Take advantage of that. Find something fun to do. Take another nap, an extra nap if you want to. Catch up with a friend that you haven't caught up with. Of course, let them know you're taking the exam in a couple days, and you need kind of a little mental refresher, but not too heavy. Definitely don't go out partying the 2 days before. Don't do that. Just do something to kind of reset your batteries. And then the day before the exam, I suggest doing 2 to 4 hours of random multiple choice questions. You can do a sim if you want to, but really at that point, you know what you know. The multiple choice questions are there really to just kind of keep things flowing in your head and maybe to point out a problem area that maybe you didn't know existed, just, to keep your brain working. And if you've made it that far, you're going to make it to exam day, which may be stressful for your first one. I know it's easy for me to say don't make it stressful. I spent the 2 days before my first exam in a hotel room, sequestered, going through my process because I didn't want to chance anything. I got a hotel that was across the parking lot from Prometric. That's how serious I took my first exam. I didn't do that for the later exams, but I wasn't taking any chances. So in that regard, for exam day, get enough sleep. You're going to be losing sleep while studying for the exam. I know that. But get enough sleep on exam day, whether that's 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. Make sure you give your brain the fuel that it needs to do the job that you need to do. By the same token, wake up a little bit early and have breakfast. And it doesn't have to be an opulent breakfast. Definitely don't go crazy on the fat and goodies. Maybe have some toast, some fruit, a little bit of cereal, whatever. Don't go too heavy on things like eggs or bacon, a little bit, but just, make sure that your body has the fuel to get going and to help you focus through what's going to be a 4-hour exam that's going to test you. I mean, yes, it's a test that's going to test you. I know that sounds so hokey to say, but after you've taken a CPA exam, you'll understand. In that regard, when you go to the test center, don't leave 15 more minutes before your appointment. Leave early enough so that not only can you get there early, I suggest doing an hour of multiple choice questions or some sort of review right beforehand. And if you need to do that at home, so be it. But if you can do that on your phone or on a laptop, in your car, out there parked in front of the test center, I know that seems kind of ridiculous, but you're right there. You're not going to be late. You're just kind of organizing your thoughts. Cram in an extra hour. It can't hurt. Just make sure that when you're cramming in that extra hour, don't leave with 60 seconds to spare to your appointment. No. At least 20 minutes before your appointment time, you want to be up there and in there and starting the check-in process and breathe in and breathe out and be calm. And if you've taken those practice exams and you've done your studying, you should be calm and confident enough. The exam is still going to challenge you. It's still going to wear you out. You may leave the exam not thinking that you passed, but you should be okay if you did what you needed to do with your study program. So in that regard, that's kind of my study plan. That's all I really did as a working individual while studying for the CPA exam, and as someone who was taking master's degree classes at the same time. I do have some additional study tips that may be helpful. Be adaptable. That's a big one. You need to be flexible in your life. What that is if you have an hour free, throw some CPA study in there. If something comes up in life and you need to postpone what you thought was going to be 2 hours of Sims, okay, but right off the bat, look at your calendar and see where you can put that 2 hours. Another good tip, don't take incorrect answers personally. Incorrect answers are opportunities, especially if you're doing Gleim. You're going to see a lot of incorrect answers in Gleim because they've set it up to be very challenging material. Incorrect answers are just opportunities to learn and to help your knowledge. And the more answers you get wrong in the beginning, the fewer answers you will get wrong toward the end. And I think that actually paid off for me because Gleim brutalized me, and the first practice exams I'd take, I'd get maybe 70s on, maybe even a little less than that. But by the end, I was getting 80s or so on the practice exams, and then I took the actual exams, and I got a 93 on FAR, a 98 on BEC. I can't complain about that. And I think that kind of emphasizes the structure of my approach, which I may have hinted at. Focusing on your strengths and weaknesses, then focusing on your weaknesses, maybe reviewing your strengths a little bit, but constantly trying to check off those weaknesses. And my study objective is a reductive approach. So when you start off, you're just studying everything. But then you start realizing what your competencies are and what your weaknesses are. So you focus less on your competencies. You still, take a few multiple choice questions or a sim here and there, maybe 20% of the time, but that 80% of the time is focused on your tough spots. And you keep doing that until the tough spots become part of your competencies. And as you go along, week by week, your weaknesses should shrink. And using that reductive approach, by the time you get to that last week, you should have a pretty good practice exam result and hopefully not a deluge of information to study. And if you have a deluge of information to study, you were probably a little too optimistic about scheduling that exam, which goes back to, what I mentioned in the beginning, which is be reasonable and realistic about when you're scheduling this thing. Give yourself a month to get used to your CPA review course and used to your particular way of studying before you schedule. And if you go to schedule and it doesn't feel right, embrace that notion. It's better to postpone the exam and postpone your process than to barrel into it and fail once, fail twice, fail 3 times. Because you can do this efficiently and get through it. I mean, would you rather spend 16 months getting through it and fail 7, 8, 10 times, or would you like to spend 14 months, 13 months doing it, fail maybe once or not at all, and save yourself a ton of that money? Because every time you retake a CPA exam, there's what, $250, $300 just gone, poof. And remember, mindset, attitude, that's the number one thing. How you approach it. The CPA isn't, studying for the CPA isn't meant to be, well, okay, studying is set up to be stressful. The exam can be stressful, but doing accounting and studying accounting should not be stressful. It should just be part of your life. You need to approach it with an openness, and approach it with the same openness that you approach going to the fridge and looking for whatever you're going to eat that day. It's every day is a new opportunity. Every hour you study is a new opportunity. So that's pretty much my spiel. If you have any questions for me, definitely feel free to leave them in the comments below. Again, definitely check the other resources out there. Professor Farhat's videos, Ed Spira's videos, CPA Strength. Just, have faith in yourself. I know you can do it. Hopefully you can do it. And, let me know how you're doing too. If these tips were useful for you or I helped you in some way, let me know. Let us all know. Post your own videos as to how you're doing on the CPA exam. I think we'd all love to see someone else's progress and success. It's a great thing. I love watching CPA study videos and CPA progress videos. So just, remember, you're not alone out there. You have a support system. Maybe you haven't found it yet, but we're out there. Embrace it, and good luck to you. Peace.